Give me your thoughts on the rote memorization approach to the written instead of ground school.
If one of the answers is 2,800 feet, pick that one. That's the right answer. That doesn't teach you anything.
You know, you show up to work every day, and the student's job is to see if they can kill you. Is that going to change? With all the years of being a flight instructor, I'm sure you have some stories. So, Russ, let's launch into it. What was it like back in the day instructing student after student? Did you ever have any close calls?
I have, but Dan, let me first say, how the heck are you?
I'm doing good, but...
I haven't seen you in a while.
No, I haven't seen you.
Maybe I should interview you.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't certainly talk enough, but I met you for the first time 1 year ago here.
That was right,
Yeah, because...
We've been talking on the phone for years.
For years we talked on the phone, but it was through the COVID years. And nobody was doing anything back then, so... Yeah. Last year was the first time actually face-to-face. But tell me about being a flight instructor and how you know, you show up to work every day and the student's job is to see if they can kill you.
That is an old story, and rarely is it true, but occasionally it is. And I don't think they're intentionally trying to do it, but we were talking earlier and you were wanting to know some of the hairy stories. One in particular, now this had to do with emergency descents.
Okay.
The aviation has changed their guidance in the past few years to put in a 30 to 45 degree bank, so it's a spiral. But before, it was just, you shove the nose down to V&E.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I had a student and he was very exuberant with that, shoved the nose out, locked up his elbows, and we're starting to go straight down and he won't let go. So
he locked his elbows.
Yeah, he locked his elbows out. So, you know, I'm yelling at him and finally I had to reach across and do that. So that was kind of hairy. But
so sometimes you have to get physical.
Unexpected, yeah. Another one was, this is kind of a funny one because the guy said, this is why I pay you the big bucks. But he kind of got low and slow over the threshold of the runway, and instead of, you know, flaring it, getting ready for an actual touchdown, he's pitching up into a stall configuration. The airplane starts sliding off the edge of the runway, and I'm worried about hitting approach lights now, so I took it over and put the power in, and we kind of wallowed out of there and went around. But that was where he said he was glad he was paid a lot of money for his instruction, because he figured he got his instruction money that day.
So he was testing you, seeing if he could kill you.
I don't know if he was actually testing me, but you know, that was something of a close call. When I flew in yesterday, I landed over Winter Haven because I had a friend who was able to hook me up with a hangar, but unfortunately I left half my stuff in the airplane, so I got up this morning, I couldn't brush my teeth or anything, so we managed to, after going to Chick-fil-A, we managed to stop by, so I got a toothbrush and some toothpaste, and right outside the hangar over here, brushed it out with some bottled water and did a nice toothbrushing right there.
So you're getting the camping experience here at Sun and Fun,
right,
whether you mean to or not.
Yeah. So I'm able to roll with the flow. No toothbrush, no problem.
Which roll with the flow is the mantra of a good instructor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hopefully less roll, but more flow.
Okay, so you were an instructor, but somewhere along the way you decided to create Gold Seal, which is a online ground school. Take me through that transition, and I mean, were you always an entrepreneur? I mean, tell me about how that all happened.
Yeah, that's exactly the flow there. I started out, I was an IT guy in college, and I worked for Fortune 500 for a number of years, but I always knew I wanted to start my own software company. So I did that, so I've stayed involved in this kind of development, but one of the things I started doing was creating educational courses. They weren't so great in the beginning, but I mean, this was back in the early to mid 80s.
Oh, wow.
So I've always had this joy of explaining to people how things work. In fact, when I was a CFI, most CFIs don't like to give any ground instruction. They leave that up to they want to get the Hobbs meter going, they want to get their hours for their logbooks. But I actually enjoyed the ground instruction more than the flying part.
Well, yeah, because they were trying to kill you.
Well, yeah, that's one reason. But I like to explain how things work. You know, was always kind of the give me a watch and I'll take it apart kind of person. But that's how I kind of segued from flight instructor back into the software side of thing to create educational products. My main, I won't say beef, but my main concern about most of the existing pilot training programs is they're kind of like an 80s high school or college lecture.
Oh, it's defensive driving.
It's very linear.
Yeah.
They start at the beginning, and they talk through a subject, and at the end of 8 minutes they close. And how much of that did you actually remember? Well, probably not a lot. So I wanted to come up with a way of teaching that where knowledge transfer was the key development goal.
So how can we do better with our online course to transfer the knowledge, not just get the course done?
That's right, to make it stick.
Right.
So there's a number of ways you do that. First of all, you don't just be linear in your delivery. Give them 2 or 3 minutes of something and then stop right there and go back and give some type of flashback, some type of quick review onto that last 2-3 minutes that you just went over. Then you continue on for there. And these aren't separate lessons. This is all in one lesson.
Okay.
So there's a lot of retrograde kind of motion that goes on in there.
So you keep the pace kind of changing and to keep the attention and the engagement in the viewer.
3 steps forward, 1 step back.
Yeah.
And then I came up, I had always been looking for some software to do this, and finally back in the early 2000s, I found a company that provided such, where I could make these things interactive. If you want to see how a slip works, we show an animation of an airplane, and you can slide a little slider back and forth, and you see the tail move, you see the turn coordinator move, and you see what it does down the runway, how far it takes you, or how close. You can actually see what a slip is and how it works by moving the slider on the screen in the lesson. Which means that we can't just do conventional MP4 videos because they're not interactive.
No.
If somebody tells you I have an interactive product and it's a video, it's not interactive.
No.
It just can't be. And ours are not MP4s at all. In fact, our lessons are actually, people don't realize this, but they're executable web pages. Each little scene is a separate little web page, and that's how we get all the interactivity in there. And then it goes to the next one, and it looks like a smooth flowing video, but with the interaction set in there.
All right, so my big takeaway here from everything you just said was now I understand why you got Brian Turner, because he's former IT. So it's this whole IT connection of why you have Brian Turner all over the place, promoting Gold Seal. Now I get it. That's my takeaway.
Yeah, and I actually tried to hire him about 10 years ago, but he said, no, I'm trying to get out of this. I don't want to do more of it. So we started working with him in a different way.
Well, if the airline takes any longer, you may want to offer that again.
He may come back. Yeah, I was talking with him about this a little while ago. Got to have some bucks come in if you're going to play Buck Rogers, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, so that's how you got started. Is this something that you created while you were still working a day job? Was this a side hustle? And what was the hardest part of that?
Okay, and that's an interesting thing. I'm glad you brought that up. So I was, first of all, just a one-man flight instructor. I worked at some flight schools, but I eventually rented an office space across the airport on the other side and just hung my shingle out. And I got a separate office space right next to mine because I realized these people come in, I like to give ground instruction, explain how things work, but I'm doing the same thing every day over and over and over again. So I started developing software where I could have people go in the room next door and spend 20 or 30 minutes going through the ground stuff. Then they come back with me, we go over it in 10 minutes, and we hop in the airplane and go. So my brother had come to visit, and he said, wow, this is really good. You could sell that. And I said, really? Sell it?
So it was your brother who had the idea.
I have to credit him because I didn't even occur to me to branch out into a business with it. But that was the genesis of it. To make the ground training still there, but not so repetitive with me doing the same discussions every day over and over again. I mean, you can only talk about short field landings for so long. Right.
Well, I know that from my own personal experience. Now, a while back, we did get sponsorship from Gold Seal.
Yep.
And so I do want to qualify that, but I will tell you guys, we're not now, but I love Gold Seal. And when I was going through my CFI training, because I didn't know about you back when I did my private. So when I did my CFI training though, I went through the private, the whole course. And I totally agree with what you said. The interactive really helped the retention.
Doesn't look like anybody else's course
No,
at
it doesn't
all.
look like it. And also
Nothing.
I'm a very visual learner. And so all the touches you're talking about that you and your team have put in there really helped me. And so I really appreciated that, and I went through the whole course. The other thing I like that you do, although I'm a CFI, I don't do it professionally all the time. I did it more just to keep training and keep learning. And but what I appreciate is that you give free access to to instructors, and then they can monitor their students' progress, and I think that's a great tool.
Yeah, and again, it's pretty innovative. I think we were the first. Now a lot of ground schools do this.
They do that? Okay.
But we started on this about 10 years ago on this idea of making a tool not just for the students, but for the instructors, a way for them to monitor and see how their students are doing. If you have a private pilot student and you tell them, next Tuesday we're going to do steep turns. Before next Tuesday, I want you to go to the ground school and I want you to go through the lesson on steep turns.
And then you'll be able to, as an instructor, go in and look and see if they did it or not.
See if they actually did it. And sometimes, probably a lot, they say, oh yeah, I went over that, then they look, and no, they didn't. They didn't even look at it.
Let's head towards some controversial subject.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
I started to say something, but I won't.
Okay. Give me your thoughts, like I don't know. Give me your thoughts on the rote memorization approach to the written instead of ground school.
Yeah. If you look in all the flight instructor's handbook and all these fundamentals of instruction, they talk about this concept of rote memorization is a part of the process of learning.
Right.
And it is. We have regulations. That's pretty much rote
memorization.
Exactly
91-116, yeah.
Unfortunately, a lot of people have gotten this concept, people who are preparing mainly for written tests, that, oh, the FAA says I'm supposed to do this as rote memorization, so I'm going to go find some place that's got all the test questions, I'm going to memorize the test questions. It's rote memorization, right? Well, that's not what they had in mind. You're supposed to learn the material, so if I think when I was in college they would have called that cheating, but it's not so it's not so anymore. Let's face it, you're out in an expensive airplane in a somewhat dangerous environment. You need to know your stuff. So memorizing test questions just doesn't really cut it in an avocation like aviation. You really need to understand about density, altitude, and why it matters. You don't have to worry about whether if one of the answers is 2,800 feet, pick that one. That's the right answer. That doesn't teach you anything.
No, it doesn't. It makes you dangerous. Yeah. So is that going to change?
It is absolutely going to change. The FAA contracted with PSI, the testing service, back in 2020, I believe, and to create a new program they call ACTS. It is the aviation, and now I have forgotten what the acronym stands for, some kind of training system. So their goal is to modernize the test delivery and test question creation. So no longer is it just a series of questions in a database, they pull them from random. They actually now are going in quarterly and updating the questions in there, changing the wording, doing everything they can to try to prevent something that they call question harvesting. They don't want companies like mine, and we don't, but some better known ones, from getting people to call in and say, I took this test yesterday and here's a question, I didn't see it in yours, so they add that to their database and they give the guy a bounty for that. They have a new thing, it's going to be dynamic question creation, and this may likely come out sooner than later, probably this year.
Oh, wow.
They're going to start changing so the questions aren't just right out of a database, they're dynamically generated, and they had a very unclever name for this process, but it's dynamic. So for example, if you've seen some questions in your database that you've been practicing from, and it's some kind of flight planning problem, well, they'll reword it first, and then they'll put in all different variables, and it will change for every single test, so it will not be possible for you to actually memorize a question and recognize, oh, I saw that answer before, that's it. Because people get to the point, if they've taken enough practice tests, they just pick the answer, so they don't have to read the question anymore, they just pick that answer. So the FAA and PSI is working real hard to try to do away with that, and it's probably for the best.
The FAA could be changing the way that rote memorization test prep happens. So
it's going to get back to the point, rote memorization is great to learn the regulations,
but not
to learn
the test
the qualities
questions
of airspaces, but not for test questions. They never meant that, and that's not what you're supposed to do.
Well, Russ, thanks for coming and explaining all this to us and letting us know, because I had not heard about this change in the written test. So
it's already slowly happening, and it's going to continue to happen. Good deal.
Thank you guys for watching. We're at the Flying Eyes booth. If you go to flyingeyesoptics.com, you can use our discount code, taking off all caps, one word, for 10% off. Also 67design, 67d.com, zvision, xcvision.com, and Clemens Insurance, clemensinsurance.net for your insurance. We got all our links to the sponsors are below. We'll see you guys next time.